Good morning, guys. In the last session, we discussed about what is a profile in the Spring. As we discussed, for every application, multiple environments will be available. What is the meaning of environment? Environment means a platform which is used to test our application, right? So in the real time, for our application testing purpose, multiple environments will be available like local environment, dev environment, SIT environment, UAT environment, and production environment. Local environment will be used by the developers for testing purpose. That is called unit testing. Whatever the code we write, we are going to test that code in our system. That is called unit testing. Next one, SIT, system integration testing will be available. So once our dev testing will be available, once our local testing, unit testing is completed, we will deploy the code into dev environment where developers will do the integration testing. Then SIT will be there, which is called system integration testing. UAT will be available, user acceptance testing. Production will be available for the live environment. When we are deploying our application in multiple environments, what is the problem? From every environment will have its own properties. Those are called as environment specific properties. So database credentials will be different for every environment. Kafka servers will be different. Redis servers will be different. Payment gateway properties will be different. Third-party endpoint URLs also will be different. So when we are deploying our application from one environment to another environment, we need to modify all these properties. So if you have one or two properties, modifying is okay. But if you have 100 properties, then modifying 100 properties is a time-taking process. So to avoid that problem, we are going to use a concept called profile concept. What is the advantage if we go with the profile concept? What is the benefit we are getting with the profile concept? For every environment, a separate properties file we can maintain. Instead of creating one properties file for everything, we are going to create multiple properties files for every environment. So earlier what we have done, earlier we created one single properties file with a name called application.properties. So we are writing everything in that properties file only, that is application.properties. If I go with only one file for all the environments, every time I need to change the content of the file, which is a time-taking process and it is risky. To avoid this problem, what we will do? We are going to create multiple properties. Application-dev.properties will be available. Application-sit.properties will be available. Similarly, application-uat.properties will be available. Okay, and we will be having application-prod.properties. So like this we are having multiple properties file. Like this we are having multiple properties file. So what is the advantage if you have multiple properties like this? Dev properties will be available here. No need to change every time. Sit properties will be available here. UAT will be available. Prod will be available. Tomorrow, when I want to deploy my application to particular environment, I just need to activate the profile. So if you activate the dev profile, then application will load the properties from dev properties file. Suppose if you want to deploy the project in the UAT, then you will activate UAT profile. Then application will read the properties from this UAT properties file. Now, when I want to deploy my application into particular environment, do I need to change all the properties or no need to change all the properties? No need to change all the properties. Because of that reason, we are going for Spring profiles concept. Okay, so to avoid this problem, we can use the Spring profiles concept. Spring profiles are used to maintain environment specific properties. Spring profiles are used to maintain environment specific properties. For every environment, one profile will be created. For every environment, For every environment, we will create one properties file, or we will create one profile with a environment specific configuration. So how we are going to create environment specific profiles here? Already we are having application dot properties. What is this? It is called default profile. Now I want a file for the dev profile. I need to create application hyphen dev dot properties. I want for SIT application hyphen SIT dot properties. I want for UAT application hyphen UAT dot properties. Similarly, application hyphen prod dot properties. So like this, we are going to create a profile for every environment. So which profile should be loaded by our application? We need to activate the profile. So which profile should be loaded by our application will be decided by our programmer. Which profile should be loaded, we can activate. Which profile should be loaded, we can configure in main properties file. How do we configure that spring dot profiles dot active, spring dot profiles dot active is equal to dev. That means we are going to activate the dev profile. So this application will be loading the application hyphen dev dot properties file to start our application. So can you tell me what is a profile in the Spring Boot? What is a profile in the Spring Boot? Spring profiles are used to maintain environment specific properties. So whenever you want to deploy the project to a particular environment, you no need to change all the properties every time. So dev properties in one file, SIT properties in one file, UAT properties in one file. But which file should be loaded by our application? That we are going to activate. How do we activate that? To activate that, we are going to write one property called spring.profiles.active is equal to dev. Then it will find out the dev profile. So whatever the name you are writing after the hyphen, that is called your profile name. That profile you need to activate here. Then application will load the properties from that particular file and it will start our project. Okay, so let's go here. Let me create one new project, file new Spring Starter project, boot profiles application, Spring Boot profiles application. Click on next. Web starter I am taking, data JPA starter I am taking, MySQL driver and H2 database. So I'm taking multiple dependencies here. One is data JPA. What is the purpose of data JPA? What is the purpose of data JPA? To communicate with the database. What is the H2? In-memory database. What is the MySQL driver? To communicate with the MySQL database. Web dependency. To start the server. Okay, next, finish. Now, whenever we create this project, we will get one form.xml. All the dependencies will be available in our form.xml. JPA starter, web starter, H2, MySQL connector dependencies are available. Let me configure data source properties. Okay, I want to configure data source properties. To configure that data source properties, I'm going to create the properties file. Already we have a file called application.properties. What is the meaning of application.properties? Default file. I want a profile. How do I create a profile? New file. What is the name I need to give for that file? Application hyphen dev dot properties. Application hyphen dev dot properties. And I will create one more file, application hyphen sit dot properties. Like this, I'm taking two properties. One is dev properties, another one is sit properties. Now, so in the dev properties, I'm going to configure H2. In the dev properties, I'm configuring database username and password as H2DB. Username Ashok IT, password also some value. Here, this URL database name can be anything. Okay. Then when I go for SIT properties, I'm going to configure MySQL database properties there. So when I go for SIT properties, I'm configuring MySQL database properties, username, password, right? And URL, DDL auto, that show SQL that we are giving. So like this, we are creating two profiles, guys. If you observe, in two profiles, two different databases I have configured. So one is a dev properties, another one is SIT properties. Now, when I go for dev properties, I want to configure server port. Server.port is equal to 8081. So if application is loading the dev properties, my Tomcat server should start with the port number 8081. Similarly, in the SIT, I'm giving the port number as 8082. I'm giving the port number as 8082. This is the proof to say that application starting with which profile. This is the proof to say that application starting with which profile. Now, I have one properties file, default file, which is created when I create the boot application, and I created a separate file, application-dev.properties. In that properties file, I configured H2 and I configured port number as 8081. When I go for SIT properties file, I am configuring MySQL database properties, port number I'm giving as 8082. Now, web starter is available. So Spring Boot will provide embedded Tomcat as a default container. When I run this application, my Tomcat server should be started. Now, Tomcat server will start with the 8081 port number or 8082 port number now. It will start with 8081 or 8082 based on the profile. Did I activate any profile? No. Let us run this application. Refresh. Update Maven project. So whenever you make property file change, just do the Maven update. Then run as boot application. Run as the boot application. Now see this. Our application started. Our application started. Now here what happened, guys? It is going with the 8080 port number. Why not 8080 or 8081, 81, 82? Why it is not considering that? Why it is not considering that? Read this line. Boss, in your application there is no active profile, falling back to default profile. So in your application, there is no active profile is available. That's why it is going to default profile. So default profile means it is going to load application.properties file, which it does not contain any information. Okay. Now, when we are deploying the application, we need to activate a particular profile. How do we activate that particular profile? How do we activate that particular profile? So in the properties file, we need to specify spring.profiles.active is equal to dev. Spring.profiles.active is equal to dev. I'm activating this profile. When I activate this profile, then stop your application and start your application, refresh, update the Maven project because we made the code changes. Update. Right click, run as boot application. Now see which properties file it is going to load. Okay. Now you see here. So earlier it was saying that there was no active profile. That's why it is loading the default profile. Now we have one active profile called dev. It loaded our dev profile. It connected with the H2 database. So now our DB operations will happen in the which database? H2. Why it will happen in the H2 database? Because in the dev profile we configured H2 properties. Okay, so now application will connect with the H2 database. For example, if I activate QA profile or SIT, what is the profile name? SIT. So profiles active is equal to SIT. Make the change to the profile name. I'm giving it as a SIT. Then update the Maven project. Maven update the project. Do the force update. Okay. Right click, run as boot application. Right click, run as boot application. Fine. So now the record is inside. Now application is started. Now it is going to which profile? SIT profile. So it is using which database now? Earlier it used H2 database. Now it is using MySQL database. So that means tomorrow when I want to deploy my application to particular environment, do I need to change all the properties or I need to change only profile name? I need to change only profile name. Now tell me, what is the profile? What is the advantage with the profile in the Spring Boot? What is the profile and what is the advantage with the profile in the Spring Boot? Profile is used to maintain environment specific configuration. Profile is used to maintain environment specific configuration. What is the meaning of environment? Environment means a platform where we can run our application. Okay. What type of environments available in the real time? Dev environment, SIT, UAT, prod, and pilot. Like that, several environments. So from environment to environment, what properties will be different? From environment to environment, what properties will be different? Database properties will be different. Kafka properties will be different. Redis properties, payment properties, third party endpoint. If one project want to communicate with the another project, then that is called third party. Third party endpoint URL also will be different. So when these many properties are changing from one environment to another environment, it will become difficult to manage the configuration. It is difficult to modify the configuration every time. So to overcome that problem, we are using profile. Profiles are used to maintain environment specific configuration. For every environment, one profile will be available. Which profile should be loaded by the application? We need to activate. Spring.profiles.active is equal to name of the profile. Suppose I'm giving the active is equal to prod. But do I have that profile? So I have only two profiles now, dev profile, SIT profile. But which one I am trying to activate? Prod, which is not available in our application. Let us try this. Refresh, run as boot application. Now, what it is saying? The following one profile active is prod, but actually prod is available or not available? Not available. Then what it will do? Default. It will go for the default profile. As H2 is available, it is using H2 database because of H2 dependency. But is it our database URL, our username? No. These are default. Coming under the default profile. Even if you add anything, it is going with the default. If you activated dev, it will load our URL, our username. If you activate SIT, it will load MySQL database properties. So based on the environment, we can specify the configuration properties. So in the real time, in every project, this profiles concept will be available to simplify application deployment properties, application deployment in multiple environments. So tomorrow, when DevOps engineer want to deploy the project into particular environment, what you need to do? Just change the profile name, just activate the profile, then it is going to deploy. Are you guys clear? Good. Now, so here, how can we pass this profile name dynamically? Currently, we are hard coding the profile name. So every time we need to go to the properties file and we need to change that properties file. I don't want to do that. I want to pass profile name dynamically. Is it possible? I want to change the profile name dynamically. Is it possible or not possible? Possible by using VM argument. We can pass the profile name as an input to the application by using VM argument. Okay, let us see this. Now I am not activating any profile, guys. If I don't activate any profile, then what is the default profile it is going to take? By default, it is going to take as a default 8080 port number. Okay, refresh this application. Let me package this application, guys. Run as Maven builder. Whenever we package this application, jar file will be created. Go to workspace. So profiles app target. Inside the application target folder, any jar is available or jar is not available? Jar is not available. Now, when I do the application Maven package, then jar will be created. Okay, let me refresh this application form.xml. What is the packaging type? Nothing is there. Okay, right click, run as Maven build. I'm going to use a goal called clean and package goal. This is Maven build process. I want to compile and I want to package my project as a jar file. Then I want to run my application from the jar file. Let us see. Maven dependencies downloading for the build process. Yep. Build got success. Yes. Can you see here? The jar file is created. Go to the target folder. Can you see the jar which is created? Spring Boot profiles application snapshot.jar file is available. But a lengthy jar is available. The name is very big for the jar file. I want short name for the jar file. We can customize that name also. Go to our form.xml. Go to the build tag. Let me configure final name. So I'm creating SB profiles application. That's it. So if you don't give this final name, then what it will do is it will take your project group ID, artifact ID, version. Yes, this is the name of the project, artifact ID dot hyphen snapshot dot jar. This one plus this one dot jar will be the file name, which is lengthy. I don't like that. I want to give a short name for my project jar file. For that I am configuring final name in the build section. Once we configure final name in the build section, let's do Maven update. I changed my pom.xml. Do the Maven update. Then right click, run as Maven build. So let me go with the goals clean package. Click on apply, click on run. Now my application is running. Package is happening for the project now. See the behavior. Build got success. Now what is the jar file is created? Short name Spring Boot profiles application.jar file is created. So go to our project target directory. Can you see the jar file is available? Jar file is available. Can we run the jar file? Can we run the jar file? Yes. How to run the jar file? Open the command prompt and run the jar file. What is the command? Java space hyphen jar space Java space hyphen jar space jar file name. I'm running the jar file from the command prompt. In that application, is there any profile which is activated? No. Then you see this, you see this, you see the message. You see the message, what it is saying. Boss, you have not activated any profile. That's why it is going to the default profile. Why? Because in our application properties file, any profile is activated or profile is not activated. Profile is not activated. You see, my properties file is empty in the project. Profiles application, properties file, nothing is available. So when we don't activate any profile, by default Spring Boot will take the default profile. Okay, but I don't want that. I want to activate a dev profile or I want to activate SIT profile without changing the code. Without modifying our project, I want to run my project by activating particular profile. How to pass profile name in the runtime, how to pass profile name dynamically without modifying the code. Okay, let us see that. Stop this application. Server is running. Stop it. Control C. It got stopped. Yep, observe. This is the command Java space hyphen jar space jar file name. For this jar file execution time, I'm going to pass hyphen d spring dot profiles dot active is equal to dev. So what I am giving here, spring dot profiles dot active is equal to dev. Hyphen d system property I am writing. Spring dot profiles dot active is equal to dev. Run this one. No. No, no, V is coming here. Spring dot profiles dot active or activate. Profiles dot active only, right? It is not taking that. It should take that. Hyphen D spring dot, any spelling mistake, profiles dot active dev. It should work, right? 1 minute. Let me check it. Spring dot profiles dot active is equal to dev space that jar file name, java space hyphen jar space jar file name. Huh. Now, can you see here which profile it is loading? The following one profile is active. So, am I modifying any code in my project? No, I have already packaged my application as a jar file. I have already packaged my application as a jar file. In that project properties file, profile is not activated. But at the time of executing my application, I'm able to activate a profile called dev profile. Let me stop it and let me activate SIT profile now. My application got stopped. Spring dot profiles dot active is equal to SIT space hyphen jar space jar file name, execute it. Now you see which profile is active. Which profile is active? SIT profile is active. So with this, what is the conclusion? What is the conclusion? Can we activate the profile at the time of project execution without modifying the properties file? Yes, we can change that profile name at the time of project execution. So this question they will ask in the interview. So I don't want to activate the profile in the properties file. Is there any way that I can activate the profile at the time of executing my application? Yes, it is possible. Good. How to activate the profile in the runtime? How to activate Spring profile in runtime? Yes, man. Tell me, how can we activate the Spring profile in the runtime? What is the procedure we need to follow? Package application as jar file. Run jar file with the below command. What is the command? Java space -d spring dot profiles dot active is equal to some dev space -jar space our application jar file. So this is the syntax we need to follow in order to activate the profile at the runtime. Okay, so you don't need to specify that in spring dot profiles dot active, that you don't need to specify in the properties file. If you specify that in the properties file, what will happen? If you specify in the properties file, then what will happen? It will be hard coded. So dynamically we can activate the profile. Are you clear? Good. Any questions regarding the profiles in the Spring Boot? It will override that.
Sir,
It will
sir,
get the priority.
one question is there.
Yes.
Sir, how to activate profile in any method level is there, sir? Any @ profile?
Yeah, annotation level, you can also do that. I will discuss that, how to do that by using annotation. You can write a configuration class and you can specify @profile to activate that.
Okay, okay, sir. Thank you.
Programmatically also you can do that. That is a hard coded value. You can't change that in the runtime. If you want to change in the runtime, this is the option.
Hi, sure.
Yeah, hi.
Actually, here we are concept is environment specific. There is no database differences. So here, which are the common properties are there? We can write as a default property,
Yes,
and
if
there are
any
different
common,
files.
yes, correct. If
We
there
can
are
go
any
for the
if there are any common properties for all the environments, you can write in the default profile file, that is applicational properties. Environment specific properties we can write in the profile. If there are any common properties available now, for example, always I want to start my server on the 9090 port number. It can be any profile. Server port number should be 9090. Then what we will do? We will remove the port number concept from the profile and we will keep that port number concept here. Spring dot server dot port, that is server dot port. So now if I give it as 9090, then what will happen? Whatever the profile you activate, what will be the port number? 9090. So any common properties are required for all the environments, we will keep in the application.properties file. Environment specific, we will write in the profile.
So it
Got it?
means it will apply for the overriding concept in default to next level, which one we are giving that one.
Correct.
Okay.
Sorry?
It means it is applicable for the override concept here.
Yes, sir. It will override.
So by default, it will take the default tone, and which one we are activating, both will be considered as the runtime.
Correct. So earlier, how people use it to manage this? They need to create multiple files. Programmatically, they need to load that information. When the profiles concept is not available, people will create multiple files. In the Java, we need to write the code to load the particular file when we are deploying that code. By using command line argument, you can read the argument name. Based on that, you need to read the data from the properties file. That is difficult process. So to simplify that, now we are going for this profiles. Good. You understood what is profile and why we need to go for profile and how to work with profile? Why we need to go for profile? Environment specific configuration. What is the advantage with the profile? What is the advantage we are getting with the profile? We no need to change the properties. We no need to change the properties when we are deploying our code into multiple environments. Simply we can activate that. What is the property to activate a profile? Spring.profiles.active is equal to profile name. If I don't activate any profile, then what will happen? Default, which will load the content from application.properties file. So if I have some common properties for all the environments, then we can write them in the default properties file. Very good.
Sir, can we?
So doubts I will take at the end, sir. So if you are asking the doubts, no session will not happen. So any questions you can ask me at the end of the session. Okay. Next one is in the data JPA. In the data JPA, we performed our operations, DB operations we performed. In order to perform DB operations in the data JPA, we used predefined methods. Okay. We used predefined methods in the data JPA. CRUD repository available, JPA repository available. There are several predefined methods they have provided to perform CRUD operations like save all, find by ID, find all, delete, count, exists by ID, sort functionality, pagination functionality, query by example, different methods we have experimented. Then after we have seen one more approach to communicate with the tables by using find by methods. Okay. Why we need to go for find by methods? What is the purpose of find by methods? If you want to retrieve the data, by using non-primary key columns, then you need to go for find by method. Based on our method name, JPA will construct the query. Based on the method name, JPA will construct the query and we can retrieve the data. We should be very careful with the method name. Then third option we have seen, that is custom queries. If you want to execute your own query, so JPA should not prepare the query for me. I want to execute my own query. Then we will go for custom queries concept. When you go for custom query concept, there is concept of HQL query and a native SQL query is available. What is the meaning of HQL? Database independent queries. So you no need to use the table names and column names in the query. You follow HQL syntax to write the query. That will be database independent. That query will be converted to database specific query by using dialect class. Okay. That performance issue will be available when you go for the HQL, but maintenance wise they are good. Next one, native SQL query is available. What is the meaning of native SQL? What is the meaning of native SQL? Database specific. Any query that you want to execute directly with the database, then you can go for native SQL query. Whenever we are executing HQL or native SQL, what about a transaction? What about the transaction? Transaction is required or transaction is not required? Transaction is required or transaction not required? For select operations, transaction is not required. For non-select operation, transaction is required. How we managed that transaction for non-select operations? We used one annotation called @modifying. We use one annotation called @modifying. What is the meaning of @modifying? It will represent that. It will represent that what are the it will represent that we are performing one non-select operation. For the non-select operation, we need to write one annotation called @transactional. @modifying will represent that we need to perform one non-select operation. Maybe insert, update or delete. When you are executing such kind of non-select operations, we need to go for transactional. That means we need to tell to the JPA that transaction is required. So to specify that we need the transaction, we will write one annotation called @transactional annotation. Are you clear? Okay. Now the requirement is I want to develop one application which is responsible to insert the data. Okay. So this is my Spring Boot application. This is my Spring Boot application. Using this Spring Boot application, I want to insert the data into database. We already know that data JPA. Here, there is one table available. Employee table is available. And here, address table is available. Okay. So this is employee table and this is address table. Employee table is available and address table is available. So I will write the query. I will write the logic to insert employee record into employee table, and employee record should go to employee table. Address record should go to address table. Employee with a address. Employee with address. Got my point? Here, my requirement is atomicity. I want to achieve atomicity in the database. Atomicity I want to achieve. What is the meaning of atomicity? What is the meaning of atomicity, guys? Have you heard that term? Atomicity. Acid properties. Okay. When we are working with the databases, there is a concept called acid properties, atomicity, consistency, isolation, durability. So we need to we need to follow the acid properties to maintain our data properly in the database. Okay. In the acid properties, the first property is atomicity. Atomicity nothing but either all or none. What is the meaning of atomicity? Either all or none. That means all operations should be successful or none of the operations should be successful. Either all operations should be successful or none of the operations should be successful. That means when I am inserting the employee data and address data, either two records should be inserted or no record should be inserted. That is called atomicity. Are you able to understand what is atomicity? What is atomicity? Either all operations should be successful or none of the operations should be successful. That is called as atomicity. Are you able to follow this? Perfect. Here, why we need to talk about this atomicity? We are dealing with our bank transactions. Okay. So here one sender account is available. Here one receiver account is available. I want to send the money from my account to your account. Okay. Sender and receiver. Sender and receiver is available. So in order to send the amount, assume that I am using Google Pay. I'm using Google Pay in order to send the money from one account to another account. I am sender, you are receiver. Okay. So Google Pay, what it is doing, when I do the transaction, Google Pay deducting the money from my account. I have some balance in my account. When I send the amount, money will be deducted from my account. Then money has to send to your account. When the money is deducted from my account, then money should be credited to your account. Okay. So this is debit, deduct and add the amount in your account. Okay. Now when I am doing this Google Pay transaction, I am sender, you are receiver. I am sending 1000 rupees from my account to your account. When the 1000 rupees are deducted from my account, you should receive the 1000 rupees. If you don't receive the 1000 rupees, then transaction is failed, right? When the transaction is failed, what should happen? I should get my money back to my account. So it will happen with most of the people when we are dealing with the banking operation. When you are sending the amount from your Google Pay, 99% of the times it will be success. Some rare scenario, the failure will happen due to some server busy or due to some network issue or n number of reasons can be available. When I send the amount from my account, amount will be deducted from my account, but there is some problem to add the amount to your account. That is called failed transaction. That is called failed transaction. When the transaction is failed, they need to send money back to my account because there is a problem. So this is called atomicity. Either both operations should be successful or no operation should be successful. Suppose only one operation is success, money deducted from my account, but money not added to your account. Then where is money? Come on guys, that's problem, right? So that is the reason when we are developing our application with the database operations, based on the requirement, we need to go for atomicity concept. Either all operations should be success or none of the operations should be success. So to achieve that, we need to deal with the transaction in the data JPA. We need to achieve transaction. We need to manage the transactions in the JPA. Then only we can achieve that atomicity. Either all operations should be successful or none of the operations should be successful. Now take our, are you guys clear with that? What is my requirement regarding atomicity? So I want to insert the records into two tables. If two queries are executed successfully, then I am okay. If any one query is failed, other query also should not execute. That is my concept. I want to achieve that atomicity. Here, I will write the logic in my Spring Boot application to insert one record into employee table, and I will write another logic to insert the record into address table. First, the record will be inserted to employee table, then record will be inserted to address table. So in between employee and address table insertion, if some problem occurred, suppose employee record is inserted, before inserting the address record, we got the problem. Then what should happen? Address employee also should not be inserted. So already first employee record is inserted. Then some problem occurred before inserting the address. If address is not inserted, employee also should not be inserted. That is called atomicity. In order to achieve this, we need to know how to roll back the transaction. First one transaction will happen for the employee table. After that, we got a problem in the method before executing the address query. So when there is one query executed, another query failed. Then I need to roll back the transaction. If two queries executed successfully, then I will commit the transaction. When to commit, when to roll back the transaction, we need to understand. If all operations are successful, transaction should be committed. If any one operation is failed, I need to roll back the transaction. Now the concept is how to roll back the transactions in the data JPA. This is the interview question. So as of now, we are not dealing with any transactions in the data JPA. We are using predefined method. We are using find by methods. We are writing custom queries. Everything is taken care by data JPA. Now I want to roll back my transaction based on the requirement. I want to roll back the transaction based on the requirement. Are you clear? Can we develop that project now? One is employee table, another one is address table. If address record is inserted, then only employee should be saved. If address is not inserted, then employee should not be saved. Are you clear? Good. File, new, starter project, 13th application, data JPA, transaction application. Click on next. MySQL driver, data JPA. That's it. I'm taking only MySQL driver and data JPA. Next and finish. Yep. Let me take the MySQL properties. I want to create entity classes. As I'm going to deal with the two tables, I'm going to create two entities. So @entity EMP. I'm taking one entity class called EMP. Let me write some variables. Integer, employee ID, employee name, salary. Right. What is the annotation? @entity. Then @table. The table name I am giving as EMP underscore table. EMP underscore table. I want this as a primary key. Okay. @ID. Generate the value. @generated value. What is the strategy? Can I go for identity? What is the benefit with the identity? With a single query record will be inserted. If I don't use identity, then what will happen? It will use table. One table will be created extra to maintain the primary keys. I don't want that. Now let me write setters and getters. Okay. Perfect. Employee record is going to insert in the employee table. Let me write new class address. New class address. Okay. Then let me take this as @entity. Then @table. For the table name, I am giving as address table, EMP address table. So first one is EMP table and this is EMP address table. Perfect. For address table also we need one primary key. So let me take it as a address ID. So let me take like this: private integer address ID, private string city, private string state, private string country. Got it? Now, when we are storing the address, we need to tell that this address belongs to which employee. This address belongs to which employee. Private integer employee ID, and I'm going to specify private string type. Is it a present address or is it a permanent address? So I'm taking two tables here. One is employee table, another one is employee address table. In the employee table, we are taking employee ID, employee name, employee salary. Coming to address table, we are having address ID, employee belongs to city, state, country, and what type of address it is. Every person will have. Now you are having two addresses. You have your permanent address, your native place, your home, and you are staying in Hyderabad. You have your present address. Tomorrow, if you join in the company, third address will be available. Your company address, present address, permanent address, and company address also will be available. Now, when we are storing the data into address table, I want to tell this address belongs to which employee. This address belongs to which employee. So that's why in the address table, I'm adding employee ID also. For example, if I don't add employee ID in the address table, what is the problem? So many addresses are available, but this address belongs to which employee? We cannot understand that. So that's why I'm storing employee ID also in the address table to map the data. That is called relation. I want to establish the relation between two tables so that we can map the data easily. Okay, employee ID I am storing in the address table. Right? I have taken some setters and getters here. Perfect. So with this, our entities are ready. @ID, @generated value. For this also, I'm using strategy. Strategy is equal to identity generator. Can you write a query to get the third highest salaried employee in the table? In every interview, not only Java guys, they are asking some questions on the database also. So you need to focus on this. You need to write, you should be able to write the SQL query. Very common question, how to get the second highest salaried employee. Okay. And how do you get the all the employees belongs to a department? Employee table is available, department table is available. How do you get all the employees belongs to particular department? And in some interviews, they will ask you a question. Now, in our team, there are 10 employees are available. But 10 employees are there. One of the employee acting as a manager. Okay. So 10 employees are there. One of the employee acting as a manager. Now write the SQL query to get the employee who is having higher salary than the manager. Are you getting my point? So these are some common questions they are going to ask in the interview. You need to practice SQL queries also. You need to practice SQL queries also for the interview. So they will ask, write the query for the given scenario. That is direct, immediately you need to write the query and you need to explain them that. Okay. And can you write the SQL query to remove duplicate records available in the table? I have a table. I have lot of duplicate records in the table. Can you write the SQL query to remove duplicate records in the table? How? Distinct keyword will work only for one column. Now, so I have table data like this, man. I'm having my table data. One is available. Raju, or else like this, my data is available. Raju is available. HYD male. Okay. Rani, HYD male is available, female is available. Female is available. Then I have another Raju. He is in the Pune, male. That's not a duplicate record because location is different. And I have some Anil. Okay. And Anil is belongs to Pune and he is a male. Now, if I have one more Raju, Hyderabad, male. So there is one duplicate record is available. Okay. You should write the SQL query to remove the duplicate record in the table. How do you do that? If it is one column, select a distinct of name. You can get, then you will get the unique names. But in all the columns, you need to compare. How do you write a SQL query to remove duplicates data from the table? You need to learn a lot. These are very famous and common questions in the interview. Removing the duplicate data from the table, getting the employees based on the department wise. Okay, so these queries you need to practice. Right, I have employee table and I have my address table also. Let me go to one repositories now. I need to create a repository for every entity. Let me create it as repo, emp repo, address. Extend the properties from JPA repository. Extends JPA repository. Got it? Here, when you go for this entity, what is the entity for this one? Address entity. Address. Primary key, integer. Perfect. So with this, our entities are ready and our repository is also ready. Let's create one service class here. New class. One is one employee service. I will create this inside a separate package called service package. Okay. How to represent this as a service? By using @service annotation. I want to talk to repositories. How can we talk to repositories? Service want to talk to repository. How service can talk to repository? By using auto wiring. How many ways? Setter, constructor, field. Which is recommended? Can you tell me that? Public employee service. Sorry. First I need to declare the variable. Private employee service. Sorry, repos. EMP repo, which is EMP repo. Address repo. Right, constructor. Constructor using fields. When I'm writing a parameter as a constructor, auto wiring is mandatory or auto wiring is optional? Auto wiring is optional. Because there is only one constructor. IOC container should call the same constructor to create the object for our target class. Now let me write my method. Public void save info, save data, any name. I'm taking the method name as save data. First let me create the object for employee class. Okay, employee emp is equal to new employee. Now set the data. Emp dot id I no need to set, guys. Name I am setting as some John. Emp dot set salary some value. Okay, employee data is ready. Okay, then let me call emp repo dot save. emp repo dot save. I am passing employee entity object. Then let's go for address class. Address addr is equal to new address. Address addr is equal to new address. Then address id I no need to set. City I'm setting HYD. Set state Telangana. Then address set country India. Okay. Then address set type of the address. This is present address. Okay. This address belongs to which employee? We need to set the employee ID. Do we have the employee ID with us? We don't have the employee ID with us. Are we fixing the ID or we are using a generator for the ID? Then how to get that ID to store in the employee table? Huh? You understand the problem? What is the problem? I am inserting the employee record. When I am inserting the employee record, am I setting the ID for the employee or I am using a generator for the ID? I am using the generator for the which employee I am saving. For that employee, one ID will be generated. That ID I need to use to store my address data in the address table. Think and tell me. Without employee ID, can I save the address data? If I save it, is there any use of that record? No, that address belongs to which employee we need to identify. If you don't store address, if you don't store employee ID in the address table, then that data does not make any sense. There is no use. Correct. Whenever you call the save method, it will generate the value for the primary key. It will insert the record. It will populate that ID into entity object. Okay. What is the return type of the save method? Saved entity. What we are passing to the save method as input, before inserting the record, we are creating the employee object and we are setting the data which is having the name and salary. After saving the record, again we are going to get the employee saved entity as a return type. In the saved entity, primary key value will be available. So in the previous class, I have shown before inserting the employee record, before inserting the entity, after inserting the entity. Before inserting the entity, primary key value not available. After inserting the entity, primary key value will be available. Did we see that or not? I think 2 days before only I have shown you. Before inserting the entity, after inserting the entity. What is the difference? ID will be populated. So before inserting the entity, primary key value does not available. After inserting the entity, primary key value will be available. So now saved entity will contain the ID. Saved entity will contain the ID. I'm going to set that. Address dot set employee ID saved entity dot get EID. Now what I need to do here? Address repo dot save of address entity. Are you able to understand? I'm inserting one record into employee table using generator. It will generate the value. After inserting the record, that value which is generator will be populated to our entity. I need that ID to store the record into next table. So address record I want to insert along with the employee ID. But who is deciding the employee ID? My database is deciding because of auto increment. So save method will take our entity, will insert the record and it will populate the ID into entity, will return the ID back. Able to understand? Anybody not able to understand this logic? Anybody not able to understand this logic? What earlier as of now, we just called repository.save of entity. What is the meaning of that? Record will be saved. After saving the record, I want to get my ID. I'm inserting the record, primary key generated by the database. I want to get that ID back to insert the data into the next table. So that's why we are getting the return type of our save method. What is the return type of our save method? Entity object. Which entity you are passing? Same entity is the return type. But what is the difference? Along with the ID, it will return the object. That ID I am getting to store the record into address table. So here employee save, here address save. Any questions? Any questions here? No. Good. Go to our test class in order to call this method. Straightforward logic. One record will be inserted to employee table. One record will be inserted into address table. Are you able to follow this? Very good. Now let's go here and go to test class. Go to test class and get this context object. Go to the test class and get the context object. Then I want to call the method. How to call the method? Context dot get bean of what is the class? What is the class? Employee service dot class is available. Okay, which is giving the bean object. Bean dot save data method is available. Context.getBean, which is taking the service object, which is giving the service object. With that service object, I'm calling my save data method. One employee available, I'm saving that employee, and I have one address. For the address, I'm setting the employee ID and I'm saving my address record also. Okay, let's run our project and check the database status. Show the tables. Yep. So do you have any table in the database with a name called employee and address? No. In my database, table is not available. Is it mandatory to create the table? Data JPA will take care of that. Is it mandatory or JPA will create? JPA will create. Do I need to write any property for that? What is the property we need to write for the table creation? We are writing DDL auto is equal to update. Perfect. Run this application. Query will be printed on the console. Yes, already show SQL is available. Okay. Run as boot application. Now, address table is created. Employee table is created. Record inserted into employee table. Record inserted into address table. Go to database and check this. Show tables. Now, can you see address table and employee tables are created? Earlier, those tables are not available. Now we are able to see them. Select star from EMP underscore table. Now, one record is inserted into employee table. What is employee ID? 1. In the address table, employee ID should be populated. Select star from EMP address table. Select star from EMP address table. Can you see that? Address ID is 1, employee ID is 1, that is inserted into address table. So, is our application working as expected? Is our application working as expected or not? Atomicity. What is the meaning of atomicity? Either all operations should be successful or none of the operations should be successful. Two operations are available. Insert into employee table, insert into address table. Both are executed successfully. I am happy. Okay. Now, let us see some negative scenario. Let us see some negative scenario. Go to service. Let me set the employee name as Smith. Smith, salary 25,000 and city Bangalore, state Karnataka, country India, address type is permanent. Okay, now I am inserting Smith record. John is inserted. John inserted in the employee table as well as in the address table. Now I want to insert one more record, Smith record. But after inserting the employee table, I will do something like this. What will happen now? After inserting one record, I'm creating a arithmetic exception. Whenever exception occurred, the remaining logic will execute or will not execute? Will not execute. Now can you see, are we able to achieve atomicity or not? What is the meaning of atomicity? Either all operations should be successful or none of the operations should be successful. So if address is inserted in the address table, then only Smith record should insert in the employee table. If address insertion failed, Smith should not be available in the employee table also. Then we can say our code is working as expected. Can we test that now? Can we test that now? Yes. What is the auto DDL property? Update. Table will be available. Right click, run as boot application. Yes. Can you see this? Which query is executed? Go to database. Address table. Okay. Smith address available or not available? Address record is not inserted in the address table for the Smith. What is the meaning of that? Smith should not be there in the employee table also. If address is not inserted, that first query also should not be inserting the data. Check the employee table. Problem. This is the problem. Money deducted from one account, not added to another account. When the money not added to another account, money should come back to the first account. Roll back. Roll back. Now, our transactions are working as expected. Our transactions are not working as expected. Our transactions are not working as expected. So how do you deal with this problem? When we are working with this kind of scenarios in the project, we should know how to roll back that, how to achieve atomicity in our project. Clear? In order to do this, in order to achieve the atomicity for this method, we need to write one annotation called @transactional. That means whatever the operations are available in the method should happen as a single transaction. So these two methods I'm calling save method for 2 times. What JPA is thinking, this is one operation, this is another operation. After completion of this operation, it is committing the transaction. After completion of this operation, it is committing the transaction. But my requirement is both operations are belongs to one transaction. Either both should be successful or no one should be successful. Atomicity. So what I will tell to that data JPA @transactional, you go for rollback for is equal to exception dot class. Hey JPA, whenever exception occur in the method, you roll back all the transaction. You should not insert the employee data if address insertion is failed. So this is called transaction rollbacking. Now let me save the employee, change the details. Let me give my name. Okay. Now I'm giving my information. So employee data should be inserted into employee table. Address data should be inserted into address table. If address is inserted, then only employee should be there in the employee table. If address is not inserted, employee should not be there in the employee table. Transaction rollback. So these are two operations I'm doing. These are belongs to two different transactions. These are belongs to single transaction. Two queries I want to execute as one transaction. So to represent that these two operations are belongs to one transaction, I'm using one annotation called @transactional rollback exception dot class. That means whenever exception occur, any type of exception. Exception is a super class, right? Whenever exception occur, I'm telling to the data JPA to roll back the transaction. So before inserting the employee table, how the database is available, you maintain the same state for the database. You don't insert the employee data if address data is not inserted. If address is inserted, then employee also should be inserted. Are you clear? Now run this application and check it, guys. Before going to run this, see the database. Address table, how many record is available? 1. Belongs to which employee? John. Go to employee table, how many records? John and Smith. Smith record inserted incorrectly. Okay, now I want to insert Ashok record. Address should be inserted, employee should be inserted. If address is inserted, then only employee should be available. If address is not inserted, then employee also should not be available. Are you clear? This concept is called as atomicity. What is the meaning of atomicity? Either all operations should be successful, none of the operations should be successful. Transaction commit, transaction rollback. If all operations are successful, then commit the transaction. If any operation is failed, then roll back the transaction. How can we tell to JPA to roll back our transaction? By writing a annotation called @transactional rollback for exception.class. If any exception occurred in the method, then you roll back that transaction. Damn sure question in the interview. How do you roll back the transactions in the data JPA? Got it? Yes, run this. Insert into employee table, query is executed. Then after we got the arithmetic exception. Go to the database, address table. Record inserted for my address or not? No, this is John address. Okay. Now employee table. Now Ashok record inserted or not inserted? Why not inserted? Why not inserted? I have done the rollback. So you understand how do we achieve atomicity? Yes, either all operations should be successful or none of the operations should be successful. How do we achieve that? By using @transactional annotation. Okay. How do we roll back the transaction in the data JPA? How to roll back transaction in data JPA? Okay. How to roll back transaction in data JPA? So using @transactional, using @transactional annotation, we can roll back transaction when some exception occurred. Okay, so how do we do that? We are going to write one annotation called @transactional rollback for is equal to exception dot class. If I give exception dot class, what is the meaning of that? It applicable for all the exception. I want to roll back the transaction only when arithmetic exception occurred. Rollback for is equal to arithmetic exception dot class. I want to roll back the transaction when null pointer exception occurred. Null pointer exception dot class. Okay, you can specify for which exception you want to roll back the transaction. Okay, so I'm giving the code also for you to practice. Okay, cool. You understand how do we activate the profiles? How to pass the profile name in the runtime and how to roll back transaction in the data JPA. Good. Coming to assignment. Develop data JPA application Develop data JPA application to insert employee record with addresses. I already told you how to insert one employee with one address. Now my requirement is one employee can have multiple addresses. One employee can have multiple addresses. One is present address, another one is permanent address. Develop data JPA application to retrieve employee record along with addresses using join query. Employee is available, address is available. Now I want to retrieve the employee based on the ID. When I am retrieving the employee ID, you need to retrieve employee data along with the address data. Employee data and address data both are available in the same table, are not available in the same table. Then how do you find out which address is belongs to which employee? Join query you need to write. You should write a join query by using data JPA. So develop data JPA application to insert employee record with addresses. Okay, one employee can have multiple addresses. One EMP can have multiple addresses like present and permanent. You insert your record, your present address and your permanent address. So one employee can have multiple addresses. Then you write one more method to retrieve the employee data based on the employee ID. When I want to retrieve employee data based on the ID, I want employee data as well as address data. Employee available in the employee table, address available in the address table. You need to retrieve the address belongs to the employee based on the given ID. Join query you need to write. Can you try this? Can you try this? Good. Fine. Any questions, anyone? Every day I'm giving one task, whatever the topic we are learning. If you practice all these assignments which I am giving in the class, definitely you will become a real experienced developer if you implement all these tasks on your own. Good? Fine. Any questions, anybody? Sorry? Application to retrieve EMP record along with addresses using join query based on given employee ID. Now in my application, you see there are two records available, right? Valid records. Employee table, John record is available and Smith record will be available. Now I will give the ID as 1, employee ID. You need to retrieve John record along with the addresses belongs to John. Where the addresses are available? Address table. How do you identify the addresses belongs to the John? In the address table, ID is available. So you need to join two tables and you need to get the data. Are you clear? You got the question now? Yes. Any other doubts? Yes, sir. This is one way when you are dealing with a monolithic application. When you are dealing with a microservices application, Saga design pattern will be available to handle the transaction. That is part of our syllabus. Okay. If you are using monolithic application, this is the concept. Whenever exception is occurred, we need to roll back the transaction. But when you are dealing with the microservices, we need to go for Saga design pattern. In the microservices, I will explain that topic. We need to use Kafka in order to manage distributed transactions in the project. Yep. Any other questions? Multiple databases. I gave one video. Have you gone through that? Working? Not working. I will check that. Maybe I developed that application by using boot 2.x version. Maybe you are using boot 3.x version now. Maybe some classes got deprecated. Today I will run that once in my system and I will update the Git repository. Okay, good. Yesterday also someone asked me, it is not working. Yeah, I will check that today, guys. I will try to run that project. I will make the code changes as per boot 3.x version. So whatever I have given in the video, maybe it is related to boot 2.x version. Currently you are using boot 3.x. That's why maybe you are getting the issue. I will check that today. Anything else? Any other questions? Git repository, it is there in the description of the video itself. Na? So if you go to our channel, as I told you, multiple DB using Spring Boot Ashok IT. So how to connect with multiple databases by using Spring Boot. For this, the video is there. In this video, Git repository also I have given in the description of the video. Please check that. This is the video link. If we have multiple primary keys in table, how we will add to the CRUD repository interface? We already done composite primary key. Pooja, we already discussed about multiple primary keys in the table using composite primary key. Based on the profile, can we load or unload the dependency? Profiles are not for the dependency loading or unloading. Profiles are used to load the configuration properties. Balchandra, we can't do that. Save all, insert duplicate records. Duplicate records means primary keys will be different. Primary keys will not be same. Okay, cool. So please work on the assignment that I have given for today. If you don't take assignment seriously, by end of the course, you will get 50 assignments backlog. So tomorrow when you go for the interview, definitely the questions will come from these 50. That day you will realize, that day you will feel bad because you did not practice properly. Array, sir is giving the assignment every day. If I have practiced that, I would have cleared this interview. Tomorrow when you go for the interview, if they ask the same question, can you say that sir is not explained? No. So ball is in your court now. So if you practice, then only you will clear the interview. If you don't practice, that day you will feel bad. You know the question paper, but you have not prepared. Simple. When you are writing your exams, before one day, if you get the question paper, still if you fail in the exam, whose mistake it is? Can you say that JNTU paper is very tough? No. Can you say that your college faculty is not good? You already got the question paper. You did not study that. Now, for exams, if you get one day before only, you will feel that. But here, 3 months before, every day I am leaking the question paper. Every day I am leaking the question paper. 100% pakka, these questions will be asked in the interviews. How to connect with multiple databases, how to work with the join queries in the data JPA, how do you deal with the transactions in the data JPA, how do you insert binary data in the table by using data JPA. These are very, very, very important questions. 3 months before, I'm leaking the question paper for you. If you prepare, then you will get the job. If you don't prepare, it's your bad luck. I cannot do anything. Got my point? So I want to keep you busy. That's the reason I'm giving the tasks like this. Every day after class is completed, whatever we learnt in the class, that you need to practice for 1 hour. That is sufficient because everything I'm explaining from the beginning, coding also I'm writing in front of you line by line. So to do this program practice, 1 hour is sufficient for you. The remaining time, self-learning. So these two concepts, self-learning, I have not explained. You need to try. You need to try that concept. So sit in the lab and do the practice, guys. But I'm not seeing many people coming to the lab regularly. So if you don't take it seriously, you will be the loser. You will be affected a lot once the course is completed. I will not lose anything. I'm doing my job perfectly. Whatever the content I should provide, I'm giving with the best quality. The best content I'm giving. And I'm giving assignments also. If you take it seriously, you will get it benefit. You will get benefit of this course. If you don't take seriously, you will be the loser. I will not lose anything. You keep that in your mind when you are doing the practice. Online students, any questions, anybody? Now you can unmute and you can ask me.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, hi.
In the context of profiles, so
Yes.
if I make in application, I will make it as dev. Okay. Can I override from command prompt with SIT?
Yes, sir. Whatever you are passing in the command prompt, that will be the final.
Okay. Okay.
It will
So,
override that.
uh,
Hello, sir.
Yeah, hi.
Sir, we don't want to print the countries in output, then what we are using in the application?
What countries?
I mean, in address table, we have to write the countries. In output, like in the data JSON format, we don't print the countries.
So in the REST API, I will show you how can we skip that in the output. Here we are developing a standalone application, right? In the toString method, you don't print that value. That is fine. Okay. If you are going for JSON, in the JSON, you can ignore some fields.
At the rate of JSON ignore method,
Yes,
ignore
that annotation can be used to ignore the property.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Sir, I have a question regarding this multiple DB only. We are giving @primary for one of the config class, right? The DB config class. Just wanted to understand because we are injecting using the bean names, right, in entity and then transaction managers. And then we are also giving the reference of that, but why the primary?
Primary means which bean object should be considered first. If you give different name, then you no need to give @primary. You can ignore that.
Okay, so using that qualifier, I mean, I tried to do that. I removed that primary, but it's showing that no bean is found.
Okay, I will check that, sir. I will check that and update you that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, anyone?
Hello.
Yeah, hi.
Hi, I have one question. Can we activate multiple profiles in application properties file?
No, only one it will take.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, good. I forgot to update the notes, huh? I will update it now.
Sir,
Yes.
sir, I want to check before inserting the record whether the record is present in the DB or not. I want to check manually or JPA will check this in
If
default.
you are using generator, definitely the primary key will not match, right? It will not check that. If you want to check it before inserting, you need to write the logic. You need to set the data to entity. You need to retrieve the record. And if that is not available, then only insert. If it is available, don't insert. You need to write your own logic for that.
Okay, I'm using the default method save all. In that save all, I'm saving the list of object. So again, I run the application. It will insert the same object again.
Same object again,
So,
but primary key will be different, right?
But it won't be insert, right?
No.
The
When you are
duplicates.
inserting two records, duplicate, it will
Okay.
check only based on the primary key, not based on the other columns. You understand my point?
Okay.
Okay. It will compare the
Yes.
record
So
primary key.
in that case,
Whatever the primary key is available in the table, is your record primary key same or not? It will check. If it is same, then it will treat as a duplicate. Otherwise, it will insert that record. If you don't want that, you need to write a custom logic to check whether that record is already available with this information or not.
with the non-primary key columns, right?
Yes, right.
Okay. Okay, sir. And one more question. Can you share the Java 8 coding interview questions also?
Sure.
For practice.
Okay.
Thank you.
Guys, can you check that notes is updated?
Sir, in
Check it
real
once
time
and
project,
confirm. Yeah, in the
custom
real-time
queries are
project,
used or methods widely used, sir?
sir, depends on the requirements. Sir, I will use multiple scenarios. Sometimes custom queries, sometimes find by methods, sometimes predefined methods. I will use multiple. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Hello sir, when we are creating custom generator, how to create sequence table?
Manually you need to create. You
And
need to
then
write
how the value is like updated every time?
You need to write the logic to update that value. Whenever in the generator, you need to write one query to get the data, one query to update the data.
Okay. Okay sir. Thank you.
Is that notes updated, guys? Yeah. So please work on the assignment I have given for today. We'll meet in the tomorrow's class. Thank you, guys.